There is a type of power that needs no words, no threats, not even action. It's the power that enters a room before you do, that bends conversations in half with a simple glance, that makes people change their behavior just by feeling your presence. Machiavelli called this terror reverente, the reverential fear that doesn't inspire hatred, but rather an almost mystical submission. Today you'll discover how to build an aura so magnetic that people don't just respect you, they become obsessed with your approval without even understanding why. Because true power isn't about dominating people. It's about making them want to be dominated by you. Most people confuse presence with performance. They think they need to be taller, louder, more aggressive. But Machiavelli understood a brutal truth that modern psychology has only recently proven. The human brain is programmed to submit to what it cannot fully read. When you become unpredictable yet controlled, mysterious yet reliable, people begin projecting power onto you even when you have none. And here's the secret that separates natural leaders from eternal followers. They don't try to impress anyone. They simply exist in a way that forces others to impress themselves. Think about the last time you encountered someone truly powerful. Not someone with money, not someone with a title, but someone with real presence. They didn't speak loudly. They didn't gesture desperately. They didn't tell jokes to break the ice. They simply were there, and somehow the entire room gravitated around them. This isn't accident, this isn't luck, this is behavioral science applied with surgical precision, and if you pay attention, you'll discover that this person violated every social rule you were taught since childhood. While you were educated to be nice, polite, to always explain your intentions, to be transparent and accessible, this person did exactly the opposite. They were polite, but distant. They responded when asked, but never volunteered. They listened more than they spoke, but when they spoke, every word had weight. And here's the most fascinating part. The more this person remained reserved, the more other people wanted their attention. The less they explained themselves, the more others created narratives about them. The less approval they sought, the more people sought their approval. This happens because the human brain operates on intermittent reward patterns. When something is always available, we lose interest. When something is scarce and unpredictable, we become obsessed. Machiavelli discovered this 500 years before neuroscientists, and he used this knowledge to teach princes how to rule not by force, but by fascination. The person who controls when they give attention controls who receives that attention. The person who controls when they show approval controls who seeks that approval. And the person who controls when they reveal their true intentions controls how others react to them. But here's where most people fail when trying to apply these concepts. They confuse mystery with rudeness, reserve with coldness, emotional control with lack of emotion. It's not about being unpleasant. It's about being selective. It's not about not showing interest. It's about showing interest in a calculated way. It's not about not having emotions. It's about choosing when and how to express them for maximum impact. The difference between a psychopath and a magnetic leader is that the psychopath feels nothing, while the magnetic leader feels everything but controls everything. Let's start with the absolute foundation of powerful aura: control of your physical presence. Your body speaks before your mouth, and if it's screaming desperation for approval, nothing you say afterward will matter. The posture of someone with true aura is neither rigid nor too relaxed. It's the posture of someone who knows they deserve to be where they are, but doesn't need to prove it to anyone. The shoulders are naturally back but not forced. The head is erect but not arrogant. The arms are loose but controlled. It's the posture of someone comfortable in their own body because they're comfortable in their own mind. But posture is just the beginning. The true weapon is rhythm. People with powerful aura move as if they had all the time in the world, because in their minds they do. It's not slowness, it's deliberation. Every movement has purpose, every gesture has meaning. When they walk, they're not running from something or chasing something. They're simply going from one place to another with the confidence of someone who knows they'll be well received at the destination. And here's the detail most people miss. They never seem to be in a hurry, even when they are. Because haste communicates anxiety, and anxiety is the absolute opposite of power. When you master your body, you can begin to master your face. And your face is your greatest tool of influence, or your greatest source of power leakage. The default facial expression of someone with magnetic aura is neither smile nor frown. It's intelligent neutrality. It's the expression of someone processing information, evaluating situations, making silent decisions. It's the expression that makes people wonder, what is he thinking? And when people start wondering what you're thinking, they've already entered your mental game. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved," but he was referring to rulers in times of war. In the modern world, the more sophisticated version of this is, it is better to be intriguing than obvious. Obvious people are forgotten. Intriguing people are remembered, discussed, analyzed. And when you become the subject of other people's conversations, even when you're not present, you've conquered a type of power that money can't buy and titles can't confer. You've conquered mental space. Now let's talk about the most powerful tool of your presence, your silence. While the entire world is competing to be heard, you're going to compete to be listened to. And there's an abyssal difference between these two things. Being heard is about volume. Being listened to is about value. When you speak less, but always with substance, each of your words begins to carry weight. People start paying attention not because you're speaking loudly, but because you normally don't speak. So when you do, it must be important. Silence is uncomfortable for most people. They fill pauses with nervous jokes, unnecessary observations, automatic agreements. But you won't do that. You'll let silence do the heavy lifting of communication. When someone asks a question, you'll pause for a few seconds before answering. Not because you don't know the answer, but because you're choosing the right words. This pause creates anticipation. It makes the person who asked feel important, because obviously their question deserves careful reflection. And when you finally speak, you'll speak, slowly, as if each word cost money. It's not monotony, it's measurement. It's the difference between someone who throws words in the air hoping some will stick, and someone who chooses each word like a sniper, chooses each bullet. People with powerful aura never use verbal filler. They never say like, Every word has a function, and if a word doesn't have a function, it isn't said. But here's where it gets interesting. The power of your silence isn't just in when you don't speak. It's in how you react when others speak. Most people, when they hear something interesting, immediately react. They make surprised faces, agree emphatically, make comments. But you'll do differently. You'll listen with intensity, but react with economy. An almost imperceptible nod. An interesting said in a way that could mean either approval or skepticism. A question that makes the person have to explain better what they said. This creates a fascinating psychological effect. People start working harder to get your approval. When you don't give free emotional feedback, people start trying more intensely to provoke a reaction from you. They elaborate more on their stories, give more details, ask more questions about your opinion. Without realizing it, they've entered a game where you're the judge and they're the competitors, and whoever controls the game's criteria controls the game's outcome. Now let's evolve to a more advanced level. Control of your social value. Social value isn't about how much money you have or what your hierarchical position is. It's about how expensive your time, attention, and approval are. And here's a secret few understand. Social value is a perceptual construction. It's not about what you're actually worth, it's about how people perceive what you're worth. And this perception can be influenced, shaped, strategically constructed. The first rule of elevated social value is controlled scarcity. You can't always be available. You can't always respond immediately. You can't always say yes to every invitation. This isn't about being rude or unfriendly. It's about having standards. It's about having a life so interesting that you have to make choices about how to spend your time. When you become selective about when you appear, each of your appearances becomes more significant. Machiavelli understood that true power doesn't come from always being present, but from your presence always mattering. When you arrive, people notice. When you leave, people feel it. When you speak, people listen. When you're gone, people comment. This doesn't happen by accident. This happens because you've built an aura of importance around your person. And this importance doesn't come from what you say about yourself, but from how you behave. People with powerful aura never brag directly. They let their actions speak. They never tell how many options they have. They just act like they have many. They never explain why they're important. They just act with the confidence of someone who knows they are. And here's the most subtle part. They treat their own importance as such an obvious fact that it doesn't need to be mentioned. It's like someone with a lot of money never talking about money. It's like someone very intelligent never trying to prove they're intelligent. This attitude creates a psychological effect that psychologists call validation by assumption. When you act as if your importance is an established fact, people start assuming it really is. When you treat yourself as someone valuable, people start treating you as someone valuable. When you act as if you have options, people start competing to be one of your options. It's a self-feeding cycle, and once it starts, it's almost impossible to stop. But beware. There's a thin line between magnetic confidence and repulsive arrogance. Arrogance constantly needs to prove itself. Magnetic confidence simply exists. Arrogance talks about its achievements. Magnetic confidence lets others discover its achievements. Arrogance tries to impress everyone. Magnetic confidence is selective about who to impress. The difference is in the need. Arrogant people need validation from others. People with magnetic aura would like validation from others, but wouldn't die without it. Now let's enter more advanced territory. Subtle manipulation of social dynamics. In any group, there's an invisible hierarchy. There's who leads, who follows, who influences, who is influenced. Most people passively accept their position in this hierarchy, but people with powerful aura actively shape this hierarchy, not through direct confrontation or obvious self-promotion, but through micro-behaviors that gradually alter how others perceive them. For example, when you enter a room where people are already talking, you don't immediately join the conversation. You observe for a few seconds, assess the dynamic, identify who's leading the discussion. Then you approach, but not hastily. You listen for a moment and only contribute when you have something truly valuable to add. And when you contribute, it's not to agree or disagree, but to elevate the level of discussion, to ask a question no one had thought of, to offer a perspective that changes how everyone sees the subject. This positions you not as just another participant in the conversation, but as someone who improves the quality of conversations just by being present. And once people start associating your presence with more interesting conversations, they start valuing your presence. They start including you in more discussions. They start asking for your opinion on more subjects. They start seeing you as someone whose thoughts are valuable. But here's the most subtle trick. You never act like you're trying to lead. You simply contribute so consistently valuably that leadership gravitates toward you naturally. People start looking to you when they need a decision. They start asking what you think before making important decisions. They start using your opinions as reference to form their own opinions. And all this happens so gradually and naturally that no one even notices you've assumed a position of influence. Machiavelli called this conquest by fascination as opposed to conquest by force. When you conquer someone by force, they obey but remain resentful. When you conquer someone by fascination, they obey and are grateful for the opportunity to obey. They begin to see following your suggestions not as submission, but as participation in something superior. And here we reach the most sophisticated level of powerful aura, the creation of subtle emotional dependence. I'm not talking about toxic or abusive manipulation. I'm talking about the ability to become such a positive and valuable presence in people's lives that they naturally want more of your attention, more of your approval, more of your company. It's the difference between being necessary and being desired. Necessity can create resentment. Desire creates devotion. This is achieved through what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. You don't give constant attention. You give high-quality attention at strategic moments. When someone tells you about an achievement, you don't just congratulate them. You ask specific questions that show you truly understood the importance of that achievement. You celebrate details the person didn't even mention, but that you inferred. You show a level of attention and understanding that the person rarely receives from others. But you don't do this always. You do it selectively when the person truly deserves it. This creates a powerful contrast. While the rest of the world gives constant superficial attention, you give occasional deep attention, and occasional deep attention is infinitely more valuable than constant superficial attention. People start valuing one compliment from you more than 10 compliments from other people. They start caring more about your opinion than the opinion of closer friends. And here's where things get really interesting. Once you establish yourself as someone whose approval is valuable, you can start shaping people's behavior simply by controlling when you offer that approval. When someone acts in a way you approve of, you demonstrate approval subtly but clearly. When someone acts in a way you disapprove of, you simply withdraw your attention. Not with drama, not with confrontation, just with polite indifference. This is incredibly powerful because it works at the subconscious level. People start adjusting their behavior to receive more of your approval, even without realizing they're doing it. They start speaking in ways you approve of. They start making decisions you would approve of. They start behaving in ways that increase the chances of receiving your positive attention. And all this happens without you needing to give a single direct order or make a single explicit demand. Machiavelli wrote about the power of indirect influence, and this is the perfect example. When you directly control someone's behavior, you have power over their actions. But when you indirectly influence someone's behavior, you have power over their desires. And power over desires is infinitely stronger than power over actions, because people resist what they're forced to do but embrace what they want to do. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. This ability to deeply influence other people shouldn't be used to harm, maliciously manipulate, or exploit. It should be used to elevate, inspire, lead toward positive outcomes for everyone involved. The true modern Machiavellian leader doesn't use their power for personal benefit at others' expense, but to create situations where everyone wins, where they lead the way to mutually beneficial results. And here we reach the conclusion: truly powerful aura isn't built to dominate others, but to dominate yourself so completely that others naturally want to follow your example. It's not about making people bend to your will, but about developing a will so clear, so consistent, so aligned with positive results that people naturally want to align with you. Because ultimately, the most lasting power doesn't come from bending others to your will, but from having a will so magnetic that others naturally gravitate toward it. If you've made it this far, you've already demonstrated something most people don't have: the ability to concentrate deeply on complex concepts for an extended period. That's rare, that's valuable, and that's the first indicator that you have potential to develop the kind of aura we've just described. Because powerful aura begins with mental discipline, and mental discipline first manifests as the ability to absorb and process valuable information even when it requires effort. But knowledge without application is just intellectual entertainment. If you truly want to develop this magnetic aura, you need to start implementing these concepts in your real life starting today. Begin by observing how you currently behave in social situations. Notice how many times you speak to fill uncomfortable silence. Observe how many times you seek approval in obvious ways. Pay attention to how you react when others speak. This self-observation is the first step toward transformation. If this content made sense to you, if you recognize concepts you can apply in your own life, leave a comment sharing which insight was most powerful for you. And if you want more content at this level, that goes beyond the superficial and enters the territory of true personal transformation, make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Because this is just the beginning. The journey to developing a truly magnetic presence has many more layers, many more nuances, many more advanced strategies we haven't yet explored. And leave a like if you believe more people need to understand these concepts. Because in a society where superficiality is rewarded and depth is ignored, those who master the art of authentic and powerful presence don't just stand out, they lead. And true leadership has never been as necessary as it is now.